Hi.
No, we're not. And 3. Ready? 3, 2. You never say the 1.
It's already recording.
Dude, okay. You got to be looking at the camera like you're ready to talk. Okay. So I'm going to give you 3, 2, and then you say 1 in your head and we start. Okay.
Okay.
Look at your words. Okay. Ready? 3, 2.
Hi, my name is Nakia Franklin.
And I'm Vawn Gretta.
And welcome to this episode of the Real
and Raw Talk Show,
where there are no boundaries
and no judgments.
Now, some of you may have noticed we started at 8:55 p.m. and this will be our new way of doing things going forward. We've made this decision to give you a pre-show sneak peek so you will know our intentions for each episode. This will also allow us time to spend with more engagement with our guests, right? Because an hour moves too fast when we are having fun. So again, let's get into the no judgment zone.
Awesome, Nakia. So our sponsor for today's episode is Graphics Corporation, who have continued supporting Real and Raw as sponsors through February 2021. And for this, we're so humbled. Now, remember, everyone, be sure to grant StreamYard permission to see your comments. And to do that, you go to www.streamyard.com/Facebook. Again, that's www.streamyard.com/Facebook. And it only takes a few seconds, I promise. And so remember, you guys, this is an interactive show. So to our audience, you guys, please feel free to post your comments on Facebook and YouTube. You guys ask questions because we'll be throwing those at our guests, throughout the show as we move along. Oh, and by the way, we're giving away some awesome prizes tonight, and that's courtesy of our guests. We're really geeked up, you guys. We're so excited. Okay, so this is how you can win. The most engaging person and the one that shares this episode the most will win a prize.
Awesome, sis. I'm so excited about that. So we want to welcome you.
Oh, wait a minute, sis. I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you just a second? Okay, so look. I'm going to put another way someone can win a prize.
Okay.
Look, you guys. Okay, Nakia is serious, and she always fusses at me about being serious. So look, the first one of y'all to make her laugh hard, I'm talking about ha 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 hard, and break her off script.
Really? It take me off. Wow.
No, you got whoever does that, you are getting a prize tonight. Laughter.
Okay. For the soul. You out of line, sis. So since we're doing all that, okay, I'm gonna backdoor you. We're gonna figure out what we're gonna do with Vawn Gretta. However, we're gonna have Vawn Gretta give away a few of her books. Dear sis, the abuse is over. How about that? Since you want to throw shade out there to girl. All right.
You know what? I'll be glad to.
I know you will. So let's get back to business. So again, before I was so beautifully interrupted, we want to welcome you, our audience, and our guests as we discuss the beautiful colors of healing. Now, this episode was designed to have a conversation around the various phases and conditions of mental health and the importance of healing those wounded places that has kept us bound, unforgiving, and without knowing our full selves. Now, our intentions of this episode is to share resources, knowledge, and an understanding through transparency, authenticity, and love as each of us seek healing in our hidden places of trauma, abuse, sickness, those uncomfortable, lonely, and misunderstood places. Now, you may not be able to identify with all of these spaces. However, each of us who has lived longer than a breath has felt some form of disappointment, hurt, shame, pain, fear, resentment, loss, feeling of being neglected, not heard, seen, or acknowledged for those who we believe ourselves to be. And today we ask you to take this time to spend with us to begin to discover what life would be like, healed and a new creation that you are proud to be, accepting of in a way that you know you are fully self-expressed, alive, and in hope for what is yet to come. Now, this episode will bring more value to you as you listen, post questions, and have expectations of what is possible for your life. It will allow you to begin your journey of healing.
Well said, sis. You go, girl. And look, you guys, if you watch the commercial introducing this episode, it was designed to have you consider your own personal moments and or those you care about. And like Nakia said, we've all lived life one way or another. And some of us have dealt with extremely difficult moments of hardship. In the commercial, there was a moment where you saw words that appeared and faded away from view. Mm-hmm. Now, you may have noticed some of the words that kind of stood out to you the most, which, could very well indicate the space you are in right now. However, there were other words left on the screen. Now, those words were the positive endings and represents our growth over those words that faded away. The idea here is for us to know, yes, we've been through these moments and we certainly will win and overcome. Let me tell you, we're going to overcome, and we can survive and thrive. And while the truth remains, those moments are a part of our history. Yes. Those scars only tell us where we've been, right, sis? And they don't have to dictate or define where we're going. So please enjoy this episode.
Enjoy. Hey.
Were you jamming with me?
You know the rerun. I was like, hey, my name is Nakia Franklin.
And I'm Vawn Gretta.
And welcome to this episode of The Real
and Raw Talk Show,
where you know there are no boundaries
and no judgments.
Awesome. So let's get down to business. Today, we are joined by senior pastor, speaker, writer, and contemplative. And she is a graduate with a master's in theological studies, Mrs. Juanita Campbell Rasmus. I got to get it right. Mrs. Juanita Campbell Rasmus. And she has served in ministry for well over 25 years at St. John's United Methodist Church downtown in Houston, Texas, where she co-pastors with her husband, Senior Pastor Rudy Rasmus, who has a list of accolades and acknowledgments of his own. Now, Pastor Juanita has experienced depression, loss, grief, and anger. She has been at the effect of being perfect, the good girl, hitting rock bottom, and silence. Her journey has been a testament and a testimony, encouragement, and hope to as many people as possible as she discovered who she is and who she was to become while stepping into wholeness and healing for her own life. I don't know what you laughing about, but
I'm sorry, girl. I will tell you in a minute, I promise.
Okay, because I'm like, okay. So through her experiences, she will provide invaluable knowledge as she opens her heart and shows us how to begin learning to be, finding your center after the bottom falls out, which is also the name of her newly released book. It was released September 15th of 2020, and she'll share more about that. Over to you.
I just had to show my book. Okay, so we also have the extreme privilege of having on this episode Dr. Melvin R. Hayden Jr., who's a clinical psychologist. And Melvin is a motivational speaker, a consultant, and certified cognitive behavior life coach who values dedication, service, and excellence. And as a decorated combat veteran, Melvin brings unique perspectives gained from his battlefield experience to help empower you to unleash anything trauma related. And using real world examples, Melvin sheds light on how untapped talent can prove to be invaluable when trauma related issues are released. So now he's the published author of I'd Rather Be Bad Than Stupid, and he'll explain that to you, and of The Blue Rooster, a magazine for alternative education. And his overall mission as a life coach is to teach, develop, inspire, and mentor.
All right. So our musical guest tonight is Miss Tracey Vishawn, who will be on to introduce and share a bit about her creation for her original song, We Are Winners. And, excuse me. This song is not only appropriate for this episode, but it is perfect for the times we're in today, and an acknowledgement of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose life we have all chosen to celebrate today. Moreover, in 2 days, we shall not only have a Democratic president in the White House with a majority Democratic House and Senate, but our first ever African-American biracial female Vice President, Kamala Harris. Isn't this a historic time?
Yes, sis, it is. And I'm so excited about that. Listen, you guys, I am extra hyped, okay? All the way from UK, we have our poet, and he's a mental health advocate and creative, Mr. Kamran Assadi. And Kamran has recently gained his master's in clinical mental health. Whoop, whoop. And he's originally from London and was led to his career because he's always been the ear for those that need him to listen, and he provides graceful and loving advice. And so he encourages those around him to seek and embrace healing.
All right, now it's time to get real and raw. So stick around, post questions, share, and start your own watch party right now. And be ready to enter the no judgment zone. Now, let's please welcome Senior Pastor Juanita Campbell Rasmus and Dr. Melvin R. Hayden.
Hello.
Hey, good evening. Good to see you guys. Good to be with you.
So we're going to ask you all to share with us about 2 or 3 sentences or so about yourself. I had an opportunity to go to your websites, and your websites are absolutely amazing, and there's so much content and information out there. Sister Juanita, just not used to that, so y'all gonna hear me flub on it all night. Share with us, your website is juanitarasmus.com. And .com, that's right?
That's right.
Okay, and Melvin, yours is the blue, BLEU, rooster.org. Am I correct? Okay, and make sure you unmute yourself when you speak. Great. Awesome, thank you. So, Juanita, can you share with us a bit about yourself?
Well, sure. I'm a native Houstonian. I grew up in Fifth Ward, Texas, and I married a native Houstonian. We birthed a couple of native Houstonians, and we are living our best life in Houston. It has been an incredible journey to serve this city, not only in our ministry, but through the work that we've done through the Bread of Life, which is a disaster relief. It started out providing homeless services, and over the years and through the various kind of crises we've experienced in the city, we now are also engaged in disaster relief work. And because of courtesy of COVID-19, we're currently serving about 2,000 families a week with produce and home care items and that kind of thing, providing means for families to cope during this very challenging time. And so I'm excited. I believe that the work that I've been called to do is to empower persons to live their most expansive lives. And sometimes that means investigating our narrative, finding out what we've really been believing about ourselves, and particularly eradicating limiting beliefs that have kept us from being our best selves. So thank you for having me here tonight. I'm grateful to be a part of your show and grateful to be here with Dr. Melvin.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Juanita. And Melvin, can you unmute and share with us about yourself? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'm here in Savannah, Georgia. I've been here for the past 10 years. I'm actually a native of Louisiana. I started the Blue Rooster magazine about, I won't say about 2 years, but a year and a half ago. It came up just out of nowhere. I was actually getting ready for a conference on National Alternative Education Association conference, where I'm the Region 4 director for alternative education in that association. I have about 9 states that are included in that because I work with kids that are sent to the alternative school here in Savannah, Georgia, as the dean of students for both the middle and the high school. So I wanted to do something different with my PowerPoint. And I really don't like just clicking a button in the next slide and the next slide. So in the midst of trying to create something different, I created a magazine that I took to the conference to show different areas of alternative education, how, kids can learn and how they can be taught. And from that point on, God just kind of led that whole thing into something else that I was not ready for. Look here, I am not a journalist by no account. I'm not a writer by no account. So don't ask me where the book came from or how or anything, how that happened. But once I gave it over and he kind of took over, you really using me as a vessel, and I was really just along for the ride. This is what has come up, this is what has come out, and has really accentuated the things that I've always wanted to do, with work with kids and work with them on a level that they've never had the opportunity to enjoy. So my magazine promotes the mental health and emotional stability of things caused by trauma.
Wow. Thank you so very much for sharing. That just lets our audience know the plethora of knowledge that we have on this platform, the experience, the firsthand experience, the healing that has come out of it, the willingness to be open and transparent, the willingness to share and help and contribute to others. It takes a big person. It takes a huge human being to be willing to step out and do those things, because it's not always easy. And there's a lot of days when you can feel like it's too much. It's too much. And how did I get here? What am I doing? But then when you resettle yourself and realize what your purpose is and your why, it makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth it. So we're going to go ahead and get into the topic of the beautiful colors of healing. So our guests are not only advocates for healing and wellness, they have experienced challenges with a form of mental health concerns themselves, Pastor Juanita, depression, aka the crash. And we're definitely wanting to hear about the crash and what that means. And Melvin, PTSD with the military experience. And not only are they able to speak on personal experiences, thus being able to relate, but also understand the fight, as it can be a huge fight, a struggle sometimes, or most of the times, to overcome and to win. So Juanita, can you talk to us about the crash? What is the crash, and share with us a little about it, so we can understand what it's all about and where did the crash come from?
Well, sure. The crash is what I called a mental health diagnosis. I was given a diagnosis of a major depressive episode, and I often referred to it as the crash because literally everything in my life seemed to fall apart, or at least my understanding of how my life operated fell apart. For me, I had to pay attention to the fact that for the first 7 years that my husband and I were in ministry, our ministry grew from 9 people to 3,500 by the 7th year. And so that growth was so rapid that we really weren't taking good care of ourselves. We really weren't taking time away from the work. We really weren't doing the things that would promote healthy well-being. And so in some ways you could say I set myself up for this. Although in other ways I've come to realize that in a wonderful way, I experienced this diagnosis and it became the place where I got a chance to really pay attention to who I was and pay attention to who I wasn't and learn how to live with a mental health diagnosis. My life had been going fine. Anybody looking at my life would have said, hey, she's got a great marriage, great kids, great ministry. What could be going wrong? Well, the problem was that, and there were several. One was that I had been living with this narrative of being a good little girl. Ever since I was a little girl, that was the thing. I wanted to do well. I wanted to work hard. I wanted to follow the rules so that I could be a good little girl. Yeah. And the reality is that kind of mindset was just the ego helping create a story for my life. And the ego does that for all of us. But at some point, we have to challenge the ego narrative. I didn't know that. And so my crash became the place where my story no longer worked for me.
Wow. You know, I can just say that there's so many of us in the world that have lived the narrative because of what somebody told us, what we believe, what we created for ourselves to survive and get one moment to the next. And that became who we were, instead of knowing ourselves for who we truly were and who we were created to be. So
you know what, even the good girl narrative, right? It's like a thing that sometimes we're taught, if you do this the right way, the way God says do it, nothing will happen to you.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. It's so not true.
And that is so not true, right? You know, but these narratives are often, I say that with the, if you're familiar with Bowen family systems theories, it talks about this idea, or another theory is the 5 childhood experiences in dysfunctional family. There's the scapegoat. That's the person in the family that all the family, quote, sin gets dumped on them, right? And so they're the person who's never enough. Then there's the hero mascot. The hero child. Then the mascot child, the lost child, and I'm forgetting one of them. But if you Google the 5 childhood experiences of dysfunctional family, they're narratives. They're these stories. And what I realized after reflecting on my own story was that any narrative my ego writes is trying to save me. But at a point, it's the same narrative that can enslave me. Wow. And that's exactly what happened with my good little girl narrative, needing other people's acceptance and approval, needing other people's affirmation and pats on the back. And then there's, of course, this perfection addiction is what I called it, where everything has to be perfect because there's this belief that everything is a reflection of me. So my children have to be perfect. Their hair has to be perfect. Their clothes have to be perfect. My house has to be perfect. Because why? I'm believing that all of these elements, the children, the family, the home, is a reflection of who I am. And that's not true. God. And unfortunately, most of us never get those narratives questioned. And the challenge is not only how we live out that narrative, but how our narrative affects our relationship with others and especially with God. Because if I'm needing other people's acceptance and approval, that suggests that I'm not enough.
Oh, you better speak. Come on now. Hold on. I'm about to have church up.
All right, Doc.
All right, Melvin. So, wow. Oh my God. This is like so intense. So, Melvin, with what you just heard from Juanita, share with us through your work, how often you engage or you encounter individuals who have this hero complex, this ego complex, this needing to be perfect, identity, right? That prevents them from really living. And how challenging is that for people to recognize and identify this is what is going on without you sharing or telling them that, because we understand it's not about you talking to them and telling them, it's about them discovering for themselves.
Well, it's difficult for people to discover that for themselves, because once, like, Juanita said, you're chasing that narrative. Okay. From the moment that truth is implanted into you, you start chasing it. Okay. And so however it comes out, it's going to dictate what you think about yourself and everything around you. And so, the good look, me being the only male on this panel, I want to let I wasn't chasing the good little girl. Okay. I wasn't chasing that.
Right.
But what I will tell you is that for men raised in a single home, we're chasing the take care of your mama and the family narrative. You understand what I'm saying? So as men, as 10 years old, 9 years old, whenever we become that quote unquote man of the house, okay, and that's the only male that they see in that house, whether it's the older brother or the younger brother, for me, it was me, and I had 3 sisters, so there was only one male. Okay. So when every family member, no matter where you live or where you go, says take care of your family, that narrative gets stuck on you. Okay. And so it never leaves you, because that is an identifier of how I am going to someday be a man at some point, because I took care of them the best way I could. Now, to backtrack on that, I want to get the healing part in first.
Yeah.
Because I had to heal not only from the good times that I had with my family, but also the bad times I had with my family. And I'll explain. When I say healing from good times, most people will cringe at that, because they look at that, it was like, well, why am I trying to heal from the good times? If you don't heal from the good times that you had so that you can accept it for what it is and move on, that narrative that Pastor Juanita talked about becomes the identifier of how you can be happy, who can make you happy, when you're happy, and how you get happiness. Because you stuck in that, this is the only way that I can do it, because this is the only way that I've shown. So when I'm in a relationship and I'm trying to heal from a past relationship with a mother, brother, sister, cousin, or boyfriend, or a marriage, or a relationship for an extended amount of time, if I don't heal from the good times we had, I won't allow the next person to come in and show me what that can actually look like differently. I'll make that person show me the things that I learned from the past, because that's all I know to be happy.
Ooh. Okay. Wow. I just learned so much in just this few minutes of a conversation. And as a mother raising a son, just the insight that I received from just that moment, it's so critical to have this new conversation with my son. Because he does need to heal from not just the good times, but not just from the bad times, but for the good times too. And that would even be for our daughters. And I really can appreciate this conversation. So when you have a mental health diagnosis, what challenges, sometimes it can appear in different ways, right? Is it only mental? Is it only physical? Does it come out in different ways? Does it hit you all at one time? Share with us a bit about the experiences and how that can occur. Juanita or Melvin, or both.
Pastor, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, in learning to be, I talk about my experience. A dear friend asked me, Juanita, did you get any clue that you were going to be experiencing this? And what I would say is that, first of all, I believe that most mental health diagnoses are biopsychosocial. Mm-hmm. And that means that there's some biological things going on, there's some psychological things going on, and then there's some social things that are often happening. And so I'll take the social part of that first. So one of the things that was happening for me was that I mentioned to you that we were having rapid growth at the church, right? And so that becomes this place where I'm like a crack addict in a crack house, because I'm getting all my affirmation there. I'm getting all my acceptance and approval there. And so this social circle around me is supporting my addiction. Now, at the time, I didn't know I was an addict. At the time, people around me probably didn't know that I was addicted to this need to both perform and to be accepted and approved of. Now, so there's that social dynamic, right? Then I said that there is a mental or emotional dynamic. So one of the things that happened for me is one particular morning, because so much our lives were so busy at the time. My girls were in middle school. We tried to make breakfast the meal that we all had together. And one particular Friday morning, I got up, I fixed breakfast, and called everybody in to eat. Then when we finished eating, my husband said, "Baby, would you like me to take the girls to school?" And I said, "Sure. That way I can put my makeup on in the bathroom mirror instead of the rear view mirror, right?" I know I'm not the only one out there, all right? And so I kissed them all goodbye, sent them out the door, and I go in the bathroom to put on my makeup for the day. And all of a sudden, I just felt terribly sick. I didn't know what I was feeling. It was just, you've heard people say they just got hit by a wave and it was the flu or something. Well, this felt as though everything in me was going to come out one way or another. Literally in my body, I could feel as though my nerves were popping inside of my body. And so there was this physical experience. Prior to that, I had forgotten that in my journals, I had written that the Spirit had been saying to me for a while that I needed rest. I internalized it as, you need a nap. Because I never stopped to say, okay, God, what do you mean I need rest? What does that look like? I just said, well, I'm not sleeping. There's too much to be done. I got to keep going, right? And so my body did for me what my mind had been trying to suggest that I needed to back up. So the physical part kicked in, but not only that particular day, that was the beginning. I didn't realize that I had been having these kind of symptoms that were just kind of out of nowhere, like lower back pain, headaches. And I wasn't a person who normally had headaches. All these different kinds of weird symptoms that seem to me to just say, well, maybe it's just maybe I just have a bad day. And so maybe stress is creating the headache or whatever. But you end up having your body. I was sitting on the sofa one day and two of the teeth in my mouth just shattered. All right. Because the body was on overload. The mind had been trying to tell me I needed to do something differently. I needed a new belief system. I needed a new story to live into. But all of that at the time wasn't like a roadmap for me. Now, what happened is that particular morning when I felt like I was just falling apart internally, 2 weeks later, well, that particular day, I got in the bed and I slept 18 to 20 hours, and that lasted for months. After about 2 weeks of that, my husband said, "Baby, I think you need to see a doctor. Something is wrong." And so I went to a physician, my regular doctor. She ruled out diabetes. She ruled out hyper and hypothyroidism, and she did blood work to rule out anything biological, because sometimes there are biological things happening in the body that can create these experiences, right? So we ruled out no hypothyroidism. I wasn't diabetic, and she ruled out other things. Then she said, "Miss Rasmus, I think you need to see a psychiatrist." And so I went to see a psychiatrist and was there determined that I had experienced a major depressive episode. So some of the sleeping that I was experiencing was from exhaustion. Some of it was just that my brain had shut down. I was living my life on fumes. And so the reality that our mental health diagnosis isn't just relegated to the mind. I'd also found out, and this was many months later into living with the diagnosis, and I want to say that again, living with the diagnosis. You can live with a mental health diagnosis, but here's the key. You're going to have to learn a new way to live.
Wow. Woo, wow. Thank you so much. Melvin, let me ask you this. You know, in the African American community, especially Blacks, okay, we have such a stigma on society to say it's something wrong if you go in and see a psychiatrist. It's something wrong if you have mental health concerns or a diagnosis. You know, how often can you give us a few statistics, and can you speak on the importance of seeking help?
Well, I can tell you that most of my clients that are between the ages of 18 and 25. So what that tells me is that the younger generation in our culture are reaching out for help, because it has been a stigma within our culture for so long, well, for generations, for years. And so because we're going into a new way of thinking and a new way of doing things, the younger generation don't have a problem talking about what they've gone through, because everything has been commercialized to a point that going to seek help is not seen as a black mark on your personality or your character. It's actually seen as something that, oh, are you going? Well, you know, hey, let me know how that person is helping you, or maybe I need to go there. They're having conversations amongst each other that is totally destroying the walls of minorities not going and seeking help. Now, when you get into the older, you know, when I say older, I mean, you know, over 35, 40, 45, but going into that, there is where that, you know, where that problem lies, where they're not, you know, getting it out, they're not talking about it. And so you see it in other areas of their life. Like Pastor Juanita talked about, you actually see a lot of those things in the older people, where you're talking about high blood pressure, you talking about all these different the cancers, and you know, the cholesterols, and the you know, all these different, the overweight, and all these different things are still happening at an upper echelon of age, because they're not actually getting out what they need to get out. And so if I say something like, you know, hey, if a man or a woman has been dealing with any type of physical or sexual abuse and they're 60 years old, and they've been dealing with this since they were 12 or 11, at 60 years old, they don't see the need in going to get help, but you see it in the behavior, and you see it in how they're physically deteriorating. They're dying inside, and you can see how the body is decomposing itself because of not only just the rage, you know, but the depression, the sadness. You know, that I'm 60 years old and nobody ever listened to me for 45, 50 years. Nobody has ever taken the time to really hear what happened to me.
Wow. My God. Woo! Thank you. Okay. So we're gonna transition over to some music. And
I was like, we need a praise break.
I know, right?
I don't even know how to come up out of this conversation right here, because it's like so ready. Like, okay, like, look, y'all prepared. I must have forgot. I just didn't realize.
That's okay. So let me tell you guys, we want to welcome Tracey Vishawn. She's going to tell you about her song that we're going to play for you guys. Hi, Tracey.
Hey, I'm enjoying this show. There's some deep stuff here. I'm loving it. Well, I want to talk to you briefly about the song We Are Winners. Of course, everybody knows this past year, you know, how it went. School was canceled around March. And so a childhood friend of mine, we've been knowing each other since we were like 13. He's a band director. I'm a choir teacher. So we were both just like lost. Like, what are we going to do with ourselves? We're not teaching. I'm not conducting the choir. He's not doing band. So he said, you know what? I have a musical track and I want you to write a song for the 2020 graduates. Because as you know, the 2020 graduates did not have a prom. They did not have a senior trip. And they did not have a traditional graduation. So we wanted to write an encouraging song to let them know they're still important, that they are winners. So that's how We Are Winners came about. He gave me the music. And when I say the words just flowed, I can't really say I wrote it. God wrote it because it was effortless. You know, he gave me the lyrics and the melody. And so we recorded it in a pandemic. You know, I was nervous to go in the studio with COVID going on, but hallelujah, we made it. So when I did the video, I wanted to broaden the perspective. You know, we were talking about 2020 graduates, but we had a multitude of things going on in 2020. So I wanted to focus on the political and social things that we were going through, like George Floyd, among many others. And so that's what we came up with. And this song is basically dedicated to the world, to let everyone know, no matter what we have been through, that we are winners.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Tracey. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being on the show. Hang tight with us, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Tracey. You guys, please enjoy from Tracey Vishawn, We Are Winners.
We have mastered every skill. There's no doubt in my mind that we are the best, yeah. Because we made it through these times. We're more, yeah.
I love that song. Like,
that was beautiful. Thank you, Tracey, so much.
Okay, you guys, we're going to move
right along. Because as we know, our hour is getting away from us. If we were just sitting here watching the clock, that would not happen. Okay, so we're going to move on to talk about trauma and how to process the pain. One of the questions that came up on our comment feed from some of our audience members was how to recognize something. And I told them, hang tight because we're going to get into that. So Melvin, if you could please explain to us, what is trauma? And is trauma pain? Is trauma anger?
Well, trauma can be a lot of things. And trauma can be pain. Trauma can be anger. Trauma can be depressing. Trauma can be happy. It's sad. It all depends on how you choose to express what's going on with you. But you got to know what's going on with you first. And in order to do that, most of the time, trauma is going to show itself in your most vulnerable moment. It's who you are at its core. So there are 6 things that you could actually see in yourself that will let you know what type, that you're healing from some type of trauma, and you will create a routine, and that's your daily life, what you're doing. You're going to change what you're doing, and that's going to become your norm. And then you have to deal with the event, relative to a memory you may have, or you're living the event in the moment as it's happening to you right now, in your daily life. And then you have the withdrawal part. You're going to withdraw emotionally, you're going to withdraw physically, and there's going to be some spiritual withdrawal. And so those are some of the signs that people will notice in you and start asking you what's wrong. And then there's the awareness part. You are very much aware of what's going on in your life. It's like you are wide awake, but there's nothing coming out. Okay. And then you have the action part. That's where you're running, like Pastor Juanita talked about earlier. I call it the treadmill effect. It's where you're running and you're not going anywhere. You're not getting anywhere on, and how fast you run. And on a treadmill, you can go up, you can go down, you can go straight. And it's just that same race day in and day out. And that's when the integration of your countenance starts to look different. The baggy eyes, like you're not getting enough sleep. You're tired all the time. It's just the look. You look like something's going on, and you wonder why everybody's asking you what's going on is because you are holding it inside. And it's not like it can't be seen. So the smile on your face that you think you're giving, that everybody, is so used to you having, and that that's the one thing you can do to kind of ward people off of what you're trying to do, they can see through that because it shows around in your face. And it doesn't, and that smile, it's still there, but it's not as bright. See, that's where I say when your spirit is not in it, that smile can be as bright as it wants to be. All they see is white teeth. They're not feeling the essence of who you are, who they've gotten so used to being. And so in those 6 things, you have another 8 things that you got to figure out what's going on. You got to find out your triggers. You got to find out your survival loop. You got to find out your circle of abuse, your stages of acceptance. It's 7 of those. And then it's your stages of acceptance. Part 2 is 5 of those. Your change curve, your shame cycle. It's so many different things that are all wrapped up into that, which is why it's so important to know that this is what's going on. This is how I need to start attacking it. This is how I know this. There's a root cause to everything. And so just because, your hair is falling out, you want to go see the dermatologist for your skin and they give you some shampoo and you can grow the bald spot back. It's not the root cause of it. And no matter how much shampoo you use, that your hair's still going to fall out, because until you get to the root cause of what is going on, you have to admit that. that as me, as a psychologist, as a therapist, as a coach, I can talk you through it, but I can't make you admit what you have inside of you in order to bring that out. And I like to describe it as, when you get a cut, when you get a cut and you're bleeding, right, and you want to be healed, you want to be healed from that cut. Well, the first thing that happens is the blood clot. Okay. And then the second thing that happens is the scab, right? So before new skin starts to develop, your body starts to naturally heal itself. Your body does naturally heal itself from trauma if you allow the time that it takes in order to do it. The problem is we get in the third phase of a healing, which is called the proliferation phase. That's the phase where new skin starts to develop, but we don't allow it to because we keep pulling back the scab to see if the skin is actually healing itself. And every time you pull back the scab, it takes more time for it to heal itself because the proliferation stage is a compound word. You have to see when I break down words like this, I really want you to understand when I say proliferation and I say compound word, the word pro means in favor of, and life. Pro-liferation is actually what the word says. So when I say pro-life, you're actually in favor of your well-being. Okay, we're all in favor of our well-being. You know that third part of the third part of that word is R-A-T-I-V-E, rative. That actually means having a necessary dependence on another thing. So I'm in favor of my well-being as long as I have a dependence on another thing that's going to help me get healed. You can't depend on something else to help you get healed. You actually have to allow it to happen naturally because not only has God created the body to do that naturally, he wants you to take the time and the patience to allow it to happen naturally. That's how you become a whole person.
Well, let me ask you this, and amen, hallelujah. I know it's a bunch of people clapping. Melvin, so someone asked earlier about how to recognize signs of abuse. And so I'm going to give you like a compound something to talk about really quickly. First of all, to be more specific, sexual abuse. That is something that's very prevalent. Sexual abuse, molestation of a child, or sexual assault. How can a parent recognize that? How can a loved one recognize that? And does it look different on someone who's younger, like a teen or a child, versus an adult?
Okay, so you really, the question opens up a lot because we don't have the stigma that it only happens to girls is no longer in existence. Okay, that we need to drop that facade right now because sexual abuse happens to any and every man, boy, girl, and it happens exact same way no matter what it is. Okay, so if you're looking for signs of abuse in a child, I will tell you can always Google signs of abuse and you will have something come up. But what I will tell you is that the relationship that you have with your child will tell you everything you need to know about what's going on with your child. And when I say that, I mean that, I'm a parent of a 12-year-old girl. Okay, and because I'm a parent of a 12-year-old girl, I make it my business to talk. I make it my business to create a platform where she can say like the real and raw. She can be real and raw with me to say what's going on with her, to say how things are going on with her. When I ask her questions, I'm asking her questions that are kid friendly. You can ask kid friendly questions so that they will come out and be more open to you. It's not the old days where tell me what's going on with you so I can do something about it. You have to understand that the perpetrator has already groomed them in such a way that they don't want to tell. They don't want to be in trouble. They don't want any, they start to feel responsible for the situation. So they don't want them to go to jail. They don't want anything bad to happen. They've probably been threatened, to some extent. Okay, and they've been told not to say something to some extent, or something else will happen. They've made them believe, an alternate reality. As a parent, I have to instill and make them believe that my reality is your reality, that this is our reality, and this is a safe zone. This is a safe place for us to talk. And because a lot of parents, hear me when I say this, a lot of parents may have been abused themselves, when that cycle of abuse happens in their kids, they respond the exact same way that the people before them didn't respond for the parent. And so the parent is responding the exact same way for the kid. The kid has to have someone safe that they can talk to. And that's when I say, when we talking real and raw, that parent has to know, you know what, I may not be able to deal with this, you know, and so I have to make sure that I have support for me if something is happening to my kid, or I need to create a platform that is easy and creative and safe and comfortable for them to talk to when something happens with them.
Thank you so much, Melvin.
Thank you.
Wow, this conversation tonight has been more than thought-provoking, and you know, we have about 8 minutes or so left. So now we're gonna bring on the poet, and then we're gonna talk briefly about being healed, renewed, and transformed today, and prepare to close out. Thank you so much.
My name is Kamran Assadi, and I'm a poet and a creative and also a mental health advocate. The title of the poem is called Continual Healing, and the poem is basically about looking at my past life experiences and seeing them as insights to what I need to heal from and what healing looks like for me in terms of those life experiences. When people hear the poem and watch the poem, I just want people to resonate with it, to understand it, and know that healing isn't just personal. It is personal, but it's also something that is collective in terms of the ways that we kind of deal with it and what it looks like for us. I hope you enjoy the poem. Healing is cyclical and continual. It involves the self. It involves all essences of you. People want healing and peace, but are scared to work for it. They are fearful of unknown uncomfortability. People want the benefits of healing, but without working out their personal equation of healing. You're copying someone else's answers and cheating your own healing. I have cheated on life, on myself, and in my friendships and relationships. In the past, I devalued myself. I never saw my true potential. I never truly knew and understood myself. I followed societal and cultural norms. I pleased people and even forgot myself. I looked for love in all the gullible spaces, trying to fill those bottomless pits of pain, hurt, grief, and trauma. I suppressed emotions and feelings because I couldn't deal, because I didn't want to deal with it. I lost myself in who I was in the identities of other people. My mental health needed reviving. I was in need of healing. I've been through a lot in this brief human life. I have experienced the worst that someone can. I have lived. It's been hard. Suicidal thoughts, thoughts of self-harming, depression. My existence alone is a testimony. Healing is grace. It's knowing and understanding yourself. Healing is forgiveness and letting go. It's knowing and understanding how trauma affects the actions of yourself and of others. Healing is delving deep, drowning, and gasping for air. Healing is survival. Healing is surrounding yourself with a support network of encouragement and understanding. It's loving yourself in spite of your flaws and your mistakes. Healing is love in its purest form. Healing is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Healing is growth and evolution. Healing is you. It's the peace we all deserve. Healing saves lives and minds. It saved mine, let it save yours. Healing is continual. So let's continue to heal.
Wow. Yes. Snap, 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 snap. That is so awesome. Kamran, Assadi, thank you so much for gracing us with your authentic work. And it just fit perfectly with the topics that we're discussing this evening. So to our guests, I'm thankful for you allowing us to have just a few more minutes of your time so we can complete everything, because it's irresponsible for us to leave people with something in their space. So we want to have a complete show and close it out with integrity and allow people to begin a journey and begin a path and a process to healing and wholeness. And we definitely want to make sure that they have access to reaching out to you all. There is information at the bottom of the screen for mental health resources that are available, contact information as well. Thank you so very much. So some people might think healing is an instant thing. You all of a sudden, oh, okay, I'm healed. Yet they don't realize that they didn't get to where they were instantly. So there's a process to you getting to the area of being wounded, and then there's a process to being healed. So can you speak on that?
Well, one of the things I'd like to say is you said the word process, and that's absolutely right. It's a process of awakening and recognizing that there is a need for healing. In my case, I saw a psychiatrist, and on a regular basis, every 2 weeks, I'd see a psychotherapist. I've said to people that I think I've burned out a couple of psychotherapists. A couple of them retired on me. All these kinds of things happen. But anyway, it's all good. It's all good. All right. It's a process. That's the reality. If you have experienced hurt and pain and many of the things that the poet so wonderfully spoke about and what we've been sharing about tonight, it takes time to do the work of recovery. It takes time to recognize what beliefs you've been believing. That, it's amazing. Right in the middle of the word belief is the word lie, L-I-E. What are the lies that are rooted in what you've been thinking that have to be, as Dr. Melvin said, uprooted? And what I'm finding is that we will be doing, if we choose and are willing and we stay open to the healing work, we'll probably be doing it all of our life in these bodies.
Yeah.
Because they're different areas with different new insights. There's new revelation as to, oh, wow, I didn't realize the roots for that pain went so deeply. Stretched out across the street, went over the freeway. And so you find yourself, as you gain maturity, as you seek healing, you'll find more and more is revealed to you. And it's a beautiful journey. I would much rather the pain of healing than the pain of staying with the familiar pain I've always known.
Wow.
You get to pick your pain. You're going to have pain in this life. So why not the pain of transformation, the pain of the healing process?
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's what learning to be is all about.
Love it.
Oh my God. Melvin? Wow. So
well, I will say, ending the show, this great show, I enjoyed every minute of this. It was wonderful meeting you, Pastor Juanita.
And likewise, Dr. Melvin.
Insight. What I do know, is something that I use all the time. It's more like it's a staple with me, because where there's suffering, and we learn this in Romans, that when there's suffering, there's perseverance, and that perseverance builds character. You have to know that those three things equal hope. When you lose hope, you lose the ability to seek help. You lose the ability to pick yourself up. You lose the ability to know that there is something for you outside of where you are right now. Hope is the biggest thing that's one of the biggest things that people try to take away from you, that you have to hold on to. Know that everything that you've gone through has created the hope for you to know you can keep going. Because where there's hope, there's love. And if you're loving yourself, because of what you've been through, then there's nothing, you're really unstoppable. That's just the bottom line. You're really unstoppable, you know? So know that for yourself and go and get whatever, you know, whatever it is. The moment you talk to someone, you will be enlightened, and you will be, they will help you identify the things that Pastor Juanita and I have said tonight so that they can get the help they need. And, you know, by all means, I know my website is wide open. Pastor Juanita's website is wide open. You know, for us, it's about the healing, hope for any individual that wants to be better than where they are right now.
Man, and then you hit my point. What's love got to do with it, baby?
It's written in the script. Everybody.
Today, on this day of the celebration of the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and in today's atmosphere, I don't want to step over this. What would you say is a lesson we should take away from that we are experiencing today? How can, and you can respond to either one of these questions or both, or all three. How can these days of racism, bigotry, and idolatry alter our ability to heal, know ourselves, to be whole, and to become victims, and not become victims of the ignorance of others? And can our world be healed from the brokenness of these things?
Of course, we can be healed from the broken things. That's what super glue is for. So what we do.
I don't be ready. 916. Just wanted to.
No, so we can be healed when we don't allow people to tell us things. You know, one of my biggest things is look for yourself, seek for yourself, find for yourself what you really believe, what you really stand for. Most people don't stand for the things that we see outside. You know, they're following, you know, information that they are being, you know, that they're getting, that they're allowing in here. And when you read and listen and constantly eat up the things that are going on outside of what the way you were taught and what you believe, it's almost impossible to filter out every single thing you hear to have your own thoughts. So my suggestion is shut it off, cut it off, give yourself an opportunity to know how you really feel about what's going on in the world. Get your own thoughts and your own way of thinking, and allow yourself, you know, to just, you know, dive into it and say, okay, you know what? I agree with this. I don't agree with that. I agree with this. You know, this makes sense. I need more insight on that. I would like to talk about this more. That's how this country was built. That's how we all get along. I will say this. There's 3 women on this panel, 1 man. Okay. So in order to get along, we actually have to listen to one another, hear what we're trying to say, and then speak our points. And to disagree or agree is not even a bad thing, because if I don't agree, I get more insight on what I didn't know prior to what I said. And that's the space we have to be in continuously to get this thing put back together. All
right. Pastor Juanita, final
wow.
thought.
Dr. Melvin said it all right. But, you know, I think the main thing for us to think about is that truth is truth through all generations.
Ooh, that's good.
Truth is truth with all religious traditions. Mm-hmm. Truth. Mm-hmm. So seek truth. One way we can seek truth is a simple practice called the examen, EXAMEN. At the end of the night, before you get in bed, ask the Spirit to help you to review your day, to see where were the places in your day that you extended love and received love. I say it this way: what gave you life today? What made you smile? What made you come alive? Notice that, and then give God thanks for it. As you cultivate gratitude, you also cultivate joy. But secondly, ask the Spirit to show you what took life from you. What is it that you responded to that you got too upset about? Mm-hmm. Take a look at that. Most of us just go through our lives celebrating 90 birthdays, doing life the same way. The reality is, if we'll notice what we're noticing, the examine invites us to do that. What upset me? What took life from me? What drained me? What conversation left me turned upside down? When we notice those things, then we can be grateful for noticing. So 2 things: notice what gave you life, notice what took life from you, give thanks. And then here's the bottom line. I always tell people, lean in like you're being nosy. Lean on that. Come on, lean in. Now, go do more of what gave you life and do less of what took life from you. If we would all do that, if we would all notice what we're noticing, then we could begin to heal as a people and as a nation.
All right.
That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you so very much to you, Juanita, and to you, Melvin, for gracing us with your presence, for your transparency, your authenticity, and your love. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your messages to the world, your contribution to all people of all ages, all races, all denominations, all everything, for the human beings that you are here to touch, minister to, and make a difference for.
Amen.
Absolutely. And I know that from everybody who's been responding, that you guys really have made a difference tonight. And, you know, our audience, they are so awesome. I mean, these folks are amazing. We love you guys. And I just want to tell you guys that, you know, to the audience and everybody who's been listening and who will listen, because we have listeners in other countries and, you know, on the East Coast, who this may be a little late. And you guys, please, if you saw the banners that we put up, it said tell a friend after some of the information that was stated.
Yeah.
You always need to speak. Like Melvin said earlier, if something is happening to you, something has happened to you, and it feels suffocating. The depression sometimes is just wake up and you wake up in the morning, it's sitting right there waiting for you. Drank coffee, made breakfast, and it's just waiting to interrupt your day all day. And it's a booger and it's big and it's real. You know what I mean? And if it's not depression, then it's just the replay of the past. It may even be sexual abuse, or you may be currently in something right now. The worst thing I discovered when doing research was how prevalent this thing is. And that hurt me. And it just disrupted my life to know how many people are really suffering, you know, with these things. And so I am begging you to tell a friend. You have the information. We've posted it all over our page on how to connect with Dr. Hayden, Melvin. You can pick up this book that Juanita put out there that is just so real. You guys, I'm telling you, she did not hold back. And don't think for 1 minute, because she is internationally known, that it's somehow easy to put out something so personal and so meaningful and just, you know, people are going to pick it up. That is not what it's about. It is really about sharing something so that you know that you too can achieve, you know that you too can get through it. And I'm talking fast, sis. It is not easy to put something so personal and vulnerable out. The intent is to engage so that you too know you can heal from this thing. Melvin's book, his website is full of helpful tools. And I'm telling you, you could spend hours looking through his website. It is amazing. Yeah. And I mean that, you know, there's so many helpful tools. You guys go ahead and connect. And if you know someone, if none of that is you, okay, because misery don't love company over here. If none of that is you, you know someone. And we want you to send this video to them. We want you to get them the tools that they need. And for everybody else that is you, again, I cannot stress enough. And it's over to you, sis, to please reach out and say, this is happening to me. This is happening to me. So
it's never too late.
Never too late. No. I don't care if you're 50, 40, 90.
It's never too late. Absolutely.
Thank you, sis.
Absolutely, sis. So, well, that's all for today's show, today's episode of the Real and Raw Talk Show. Thank you for tuning in with me, Nakia Franklin, and Vawn Gretta. Thank you for taking a moment of your time to allow our guests to share and contribute to you. And we stand that you have gained value from this experience, from this episode, and share with everyone, because you never know who this can make a difference for. And that is what this is about. We want to thank our guests, Juanita Campbell Rasmus of Houston, Texas, and Dr. Melvin R. Hayden of Savannah, Georgia. Please reach out to our guests for more information about their speaking engagements, talks. Juanita does TED Talks also. I was like, whoa, okay.
She does TED. And reach out to see about their publications and seek ways that you can contribute to them as they've contributed to you tonight. And we ask that you do this for all of our current, past, and future guests. And to our musical guests, Tracey, Vishawn, and poet Kamran, Assadi, we thank you so much for sharing your creativity. And remember, guys, you can join us right here every first and third Monday on the Real and Raw Talk Show with Nakia Franklin and Vawn Gretta. Now, mark your calendars and set your alarms for the next episode, which will be Monday, February 1st, 2021 at 9 p.m. And stay tuned. Like and follow us for more details and announcements for what's coming up next on the Real and Raw Talk Show with Nakia Franklin and Vawn Gretta. There'll be more information about the spoken word contest. Yes.
8:55 p.m.
Oh, that's right. We're coming on at 8:55, not 9, because this hour goes so fast. We're going to start our introduction and everything that you need to know about early so we can get into the meat of everything. Thanks, sis. So there's going to be more information coming out about our poetic exposition, our spoken word contest. Watch for more details to come. Like, love, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook page. We're on LinkedIn for everything about the show. And for more details, or if you would like to be be in the poetic competition, be on the show, become a sponsor, you have an idea for a show, reach out to us at info.realrawtalkshow@gmail.com. That's info.realrawtalkshow@gmail.com. So thank you so much to our audience. Again, you guys rock, for joining us, and to our guests for being authentic and vulnerable and transparent in the no judgment zone where there are no boundaries. Right, Nakia?
Indeed, Vawn, indeed. I am Nakia Franklin,
and I'm Vawn Gretta.
And we are your hosts of the Real
and Raw Talk Show,
where there is no judgment, no boundaries, and
no judgments.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Real and Raw Talk Show with Nakia Franklin and Vawn Gretta.
Remember to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated on all of our events.
A special thank you to our guests, sponsors, and audience members. We are grateful for your support of our programming. If you would like to be a guest or sponsor one of our shows, please email us at info.realrawtalkshow@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. This has been a Wisdom Entertainment production in association with Social Integration.
The views and opinions expressed on the show do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Real and Raw Talk Show with Nakia Franklin and Vawn Gretta. Any content provided are opinions and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything. Stay connected and join us for our next conversation where there are no boundaries and no judgments.